My name is Ben Dadson, Cody Toy. We're from IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. The one thing that I always say, it's funny when you're trying to talk to vendors, because when you say Indiana University of Pennsylvania, the first thing they remember is Indiana. And I actually had a vendor drive to Indianapolis to see me and called me and said, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm in Indiana County." He's like, "Well, we're in Indianapolis." I'm like, "No." you know. But I'm the coordinator for desktop services. We're responsible for all the desktops on campus. In the past 2 years, I feel like it's whatever nobody wants to take on, let's give it to desktop services. So, of course, mobile devices ended up with us, and we were supposed to come up with a solution, deploy it, make sure it works. So what we're going to do today is really go over where we started, where we are now, where we hope to be in probably another year with the solution that we picked. So what I'll be talking about today, BYOD, everybody knows about that, mobile device management. What we want to do is we want to get into the enterprise mobile management. We'll talk about the implementation challenges, what we use to support our BYOD. Of course, you can see AirWatch on there. That's what we picked. So if you're looking at AirWatch and you really want to pick that solution, you'll get a lot out of this. Okay. I'm also not big on slides, so I'll probably show a couple slides. Cody will go ahead and show you all the demos. We'll do live demos. We do have some recorded demos, but I believe in live demos showing you exactly what the product does and what it's doing for us. Okay. Really, AirWatch, Mobile Iron, Microsoft has their product that they use for mobile device management, Jamf. We picked AirWatch 1 because we were looking at compatibility with the existing systems that we have, the architecture. We're really a Windows shop, probably about 15% max. iOS is big. So with our AD, we wanted to pick something that would actually integrate into our AD. We wanted to make sure that if we were picking a solution, we could take advantage of the AD authentication, taking care of our security, and we'll be good there. Also, the cost is really the number 2 thing. And then we went into the data security. What we were talking about that was, if we are putting emails on these devices, we want to make sure that they're secure. The other piece is also content management. If they were going to be picking up documents, setting sensitive documents, these documents were going to be on their mobile devices. We want to make sure that they were secure. And then compliance, asset management. Asset management was really, we had a lot of IUP-owned devices that people have. So that was a big thing, to try and at least have an asset management for either cell phones, iPads, iPad minis. And then the one other thing that we wanted to make sure was that the ease of use for our users. If they had to jump onto this solution, how easy was it going to be for them to enroll? So, of course, I've covered that. AirWatch, one other thing that we looked at, we have iOS, but we do have Androids. We had some Blackberries. They're dead now, but we had some Blackberries. We still have some Windows phones. So we wanted to pick something that would work across the board. And again, enterprise, existing enterprise systems, managing that, making sure that it integrates. Platform ownership. So we're talking about IUP-owned devices versus employee-owned. We wanted to make sure that we had that flexibility and not actually put all these restrictions that we were putting on the corporate devices on an employee-owned. So on an employee-owned device, one, we wouldn't track GPS. We wouldn't collect cell phones if it were their cell phone. We wouldn't collect cell phone numbers. We wouldn't collect their personal applications that they had on there. We didn't want to see any of that. We just wanted them to get on the system, get their settings, and that was it. Okay. So, let me cover the central console as well. So, the way IT services is set up at IUP, you have a central unit, and then within every college, they do have an IT manager. So 7 colleges, and then in the middle, you have the central IT services. What we wanted to do was to get a system as well, a system that would also allow us to give these other areas their own access to the console. They would then manage just their part of the console, enroll devices. We'll talk about profiles, payloads, having to apply payloads and profiles to their devices, and of course you have Daddy sitting up on top that we can always push down whatever we wanted to push down, at least base profiles that we wanted every unit to have. Maintain security, so if they weren't doing something that was not secure, we could definitely push it down and they would have it. Okay, what's next? So mobile security, secure deployments. We want to make sure that when we were deploying this, when folks were enrolling, it was secure. That's where AD comes in. Device management, the enrollment piece, ease of enrollment. Definitely app installs. App installs was big when we started talking about this because, excuse me, you have departments that go out and buy apps. And most of the time what is happening is that the faculty member goes out, buys the app, gets reimbursed, they leave 2 years later, the app goes with them. Okay, so it was big. IEPU didn't want to lose that amount of money all the time every semester. So app installs was big. How can we push apps to devices and then pull them back when we needed to? So that was one thing that we looked at. Content management, secure content. The president's phone, VP's phones, they have sensitive data. How do you secure that stuff there? Mobile email management, email access, try to give them a very easy way to just push their email settings. And I went to a few sessions here in the past couple of days, you know, and I know people say, well, it's easy to just set up your email. You know, you just put in your information and that's it. Well, in our environment, what we wanted to do, if we made a change to our email server, any settings that we made, we didn't want to have the students or the faculty or the staff member having to go in and change that. If they are enrolled, we make the change on the email server side. We go in here, change that profile, and republish that profile to the advisors. That's it. All they have to do is to retype in their password. Okay, so, and then the flexible model, we wanted to be able to accommodate corporate devices and personally owned devices as well. So we can get into demos now. Cody is going to, we have the web-based enrollment, the app-based, the shared device and management console. Let me talk a little bit about that so before you start, but we'll definitely, I'll probably explain more as we go on. But web-based, the web-based is really nice because it doesn't matter where you are. If you have internet access, you can do a web-based enrollment into the solution, get all your settings, get everything that you need, or at least whatever we want you to have. You can also download the app from the App Store, which is the agent, and then use the agent to enroll. The shared device was one piece that we just finished up, and I'll explain a little bit of that later. But we were getting into a lot of how many higher education, K through 12, higher education, okay, K through 12, okay. So we just started getting into teachers going out, writing a grant, get about 50 grand. They get that 50 grand, they don't talk to IT, and they just go out and buy 50 iPads, come in and they bring it in, they wheel the cart in and say, here, you have my 50 iPads and the card, the charges and everything is all good. I want to give it out to my class. So when my class comes in, I have a 50-minute class. When my class comes in, I want them to go out, get the iPad out of the cabinet, turn it on, get all the apps that I've bought for this class, and teach the class all in 50 minutes. You're out of your mind. Okay, no way. Okay, so it started off, that whole process probably ate about 20 minutes of that 50-minute class period, right? Started hearing about it from the VP for Academic Affairs. Folks, you can't be doing that. These guys need to teach. Well, maybe a little bit of planning behind it too would help. Okay, so in any case, so we go into shared device. The shared device allows us to provision those devices, tie the device to a class. So when they walk in, they check the device out. It's like a library system. They get the device out of the cabinet. It comes up with an AirWatch Enrollment screen. Check the device out to use. And as soon as they check the device out, put it into a class location, AirWatch pushes all the information that they need for that class, including all the apps. Class is over, check it back in, drops all the information, takes everything off for the next class. Okay, and we'll do a live demo of that. I think that's cool. I really like that. Made me a hero. So, talking about all that, before we start, let me tell you a story. So how many of you have your president's, so higher education, you have a president. How many of you have the president's cell phone number in your phone? Nice. Nice. Well, so quick story. So just when we started this, we had a new president coming in, and he was driving from Alaska. So I got a call from the CIO, Ben, we need you to get this president his calendar, email, Wi-Fi, VPN. He wants to have all that before he gets to campus. I'm like, okay, let's see how we can do it. Call him up and tell him everything that he needs to know, or just give him his credentials. He already knows that. And then have him call me when he has internet access. So he calls when he gets to an area. He was in a hotel. He called, had him go to a web link, and that was it. Had him go to a web link. He logged in, enrolled his phone, got everything that he needed. He got on campus, said, Ben, I'm keeping your cell phone number. You keep mine. If you need anything, call me. If I need anything, I'll call you. You know, go ahead.
All right. Okay, so first for the demos, we'll go ahead and start out and show you how to enroll a device via the web-based interface. So just give me 1 second to get set up here. Okay, so for our example here, we have a student, let's say we have a student iPad. They're just new to campus. They want to have all their settings, email, web shortcuts, things like that. So basically all we need to do, you see we have our network connection. We'll launch Safari. So we browse out to our enrollment server. Now, anytime you try to enroll a device, you're prompted for a group ID. This group ID is unique to your area, basically. So we have multiple BYOD groups for our staff, faculty, and students. Based off of what you enroll in, you get different profiles, different apps, etc. So we have our BYOD groups for unmanaged devices, and then we have our managed groups where we actually have a little more control. I'll get into that a little bit later when we take a look at the actual AirWatch console. So for our example here, we are going to enroll in the BYOD staff group. Okay. So Ben mentioned earlier AD integration. We've integrated AirWatch with our AD structure. So anytime we need to authenticate, we're actually using our network credentials. So
now, just a quick note on that. When we actually started doing this, we were using single sign-on SHIB, SAML authentication. It was a little bit nasty because you do the SAML authentication, and then AirWatch then prompts you for the AD because AirWatch still thinks, okay, you need to still authenticate to the system, even though SHIB has already done the authentication. It got a little bit confusing, so we went away from that and just went to Active Directory.
Yeah, when we were using SAML authentication, instead of being prompted here for your AD credentials, you'd be passed off to a single sign-on portal to log in and given an authentication token, and then continue along. Yes?
This requires its own server, and if it does, can it be a VMware server?
That is a VM.
Yes. There are actually 3 VM servers running this system. There is the device management system, or server, the console server, and then the database server. You can actually do it on 2 servers where you combine the device services server and the database server. That's just with the on-prem setup. They also have a hosted setup in the cloud. So, but we chose to go with the on-prem. Okay, so type in my AD password. Okay, so at this point we're passed back to iOS. We're prompted to install the actual enrollment certificate. So you can see it's coming from our server. It's verified, signed, of course, by it. So go ahead and install. Okay. So basically, this is the default warning anytime you try to enroll an iOS device in an MDM system. It basically is just telling you, hey, you know, the administrator can track your location, can wipe your device, things like that. Since this is a BYOD group, we're not actually doing that, but it's still, there's still the option. Okay, so we've installed our profile here. Okay, so if we go back here, you can see on the device that it has the enrollment profile. And then now it's actually querying the server and giving us all of our other profiles that we need from that BYOD staff group. So it'll ask us to install the MDM Agent app from the App Store. That app basically just lets the device communicate back to the server. And if there's ever any settings that we need to push out for updates or anything like that, we can actually do that from that app. So we'll go ahead and say install. Then it's asking me for my email password. Since I enrolled in the staff group, for our staff, we actually have Active Sync set up, so we can sync our email, calendar, contacts, all of that stuff. Students right now don't have that. They're using an IMAP protocol instead, but we're actually moving towards getting them set up in Active Sync. So put my email password in there. Okay, so I'll get into this a little bit later, but you see up there basically a bunch of profiles. You might think that that's a fairly high number of profiles for one device. Really, it's not. So AirWatch recommends, if you're building profiles, profiles have a payload, so settings contained within the profile itself. AirWatch recommends only 1 payload per profile. So basically, you can see how we've itemized everything. So we have our original enrollment profile at the top. We have our wireless, our VPN. The web clips are just shortcuts, Safari shortcuts that we can put on the home screen. We have our email, and then we have the app catalog. And you'll notice over there on the left-hand side, VPN actually did appear there because it is configured now.
Now, that one payload per profile is nice because the profiles, if the profiles conflict with the same name profile from a different, you know, you may go to a hotel and they will push down a profile with a Wi-Fi setting. If that profile name is the same as one that is already on the device, that profile will not run. And so it's nice to know when you actually do your payloads per profile, which one is causing the issue. So it's good for troubleshooting.
And you can also see, based off of the profile names, the revision numbers. So like there for the iOS web clips version 2, etc. Okay. All right, so you'll notice if I check my home screen here, I have some icons that I didn't have before. So I was talking about the Safari web clips. That iHelp one in the upper left basically is just a Safari web clip to our ticketing system, our support ticketing system. So students can access that and log any technology requests, anything like that. I was speaking about the MDM app. This is it right here. Basically, to the end user, all it says is, hey, I'm enrolled. Hey, this is the name of the iPad. You know, your connection's normal. For troubleshooting purposes, you can send logs back to the console so the help desk can actually check and see what's up with the device. Another neat thing, we actually, you can configure this on the console to email support. So basically we put our help desk email address in there. If somebody has problems and they're, you know, happen to be in this app, they can just tap there, opens up emails, they can send an email to us. We can also send out messages from the console. So this is more or less for our managed devices. If we've seen a device hasn't checked in for a while or it's not in compliance with a policy we've set up, we can send a push notification to the device and request that the user contact us or bring the device in so we can look at it. Okay. And then lastly here we have our app catalog. Basically what the app catalog is, we can specify our own, we can pull in apps from the iOS App Store and put them up on the app catalog and say, hey, these are sort of apps that we as IUP might think, you know, is valuable for you to have on your device. So this is just for example, it just shows a few apps up here. So you can see our IUP mobile app, our VMware Horizon View Client app, that's for our virtual computing lab. If the student happens to want to go out and install one of these, all they do is they launch the App Store or the app catalog, tap on any of the apps, and they're prompted to install it. Nice thing about this is if they install an app from the app catalog here and they would unenroll their device, the app is gone. It will remove that app. Likewise, we can also specify on the console to automatically push out an app to the device, so we can sort of go around this on-demand sort of thing.
And that's where we would put all the purchased apps. Put it here for deployment to the units and then pull them back when they get out of the shared device enrollment. So once we get there, he can
we can show you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and you can see loaded my email. So email's there. If we check calendar, all my calendar entries are in the device. Contacts would be there too. And if we check our VPN was also automatically configured. So it's really nice to not have to explain to the user how to set up the VPN. All you say is enroll your device, toggle that button, put in your network password when you're off campus and you're connected to our VPN. So, okay. Anything else you wanted to add, Ben?
That's good.
Okay, excellent.
Good so far.
All right. So on the other side of that is the app-based enrollment. And I just have a quick video here. We can just run through it. It's basically the same thing, but I'll just show you so that we have an understanding of that. So the only difference is I've gone out to the iOS App Store and downloaded the MDM Agent app. I'm going to launch it, put in our server URL and our group ID, and we'll hit continue. And there I'm authenticating again with my AD credentials.
Just going through the same process, but with the app.
Mm-hmm. So we'll install the profile. And then eventually success. So okay.
Shows the
So the profiles, yep. Prompted for email password, just like we were before. And you saw the app catalog appear, of course, too. Okay. So, we've talked about basic enrollment of an unmanaged device. So the next thing we have to talk about is the shared device model. So it's basically what Ben was talking about before. We were trying to figure out how we could take a one-to-one device and make it a one-to-many device. So just give me 1 second. I'm actually going to have to switch to this other iPad here, but we'll show you the check-in, check-out process for the shared device.
And we've been asked not to speak during the switching.
Yeah.
Can we get a question answered here real quick?
Yep, sure.
So as far as the apps go that you guys have in your repository or whatever through AirWatch, how do they download those as far as like the Apple ID part of that goes? Does one of your profiles do like a VPP configuration or what? How do they do that?
VPP. VPP, we download the app to the AirWatch server. And then from there, we just put those in the app catalog. And so when the user is actually getting these apps, they're not doing anything with their Apple ID at all. It's all tied to the VPP Apple ID.
Which is a profile that you guys have
Yes.
on the device? Okay, thanks.
No.
No.
We don't have that profile on the device. The only profile that is on the device is the app catalog. The app catalog talks to the AirWatch server, knows what apps it needs to keep in there, and the device has no idea what Apple ID is tied to that app.
And just to add to that, you actually receive a prompt on the device from the AirWatch server that says, hey, the AirWatch server wants to install this app on your device, and when you tap install, it actually starts pulling it down. So
The app gets updated on the AirWatch side, and then it pushes it down to the app catalog.
And actually, we can show you later, when you go into the console, you can actually search the App Store directly from the console and select which apps you want. Likewise, if you're bulk purchasing an app, you can actually load the license keys right into the console. So
The user is logged into the device with their own Apple ID. AirWatch has a mechanism to use a different one without user interaction, but the app on the device using a different Apple ID.
Yep, absolutely.
it's the actual.
Now here's the thing though. So let's say the user has Chrome. Here's where it gets tricky. User has Chrome, the app Chrome already on their device. And we push down Chrome instead of putting, because there are two ways that we can actually push the apps down to a device. We can push the app straight to the device, or we can drop it into the app catalog and give the user the choice of installing it from there. If the user has Chrome on their device, AirWatch will not install its Chrome on there. So if I'm pushing an app straight to the device rather than keeping it in the app catalog, and the user already has that app, my app doesn't go down to the device.
So it wouldn't reassociate. You'd have to actually put the device and force delete it.
Right.
And it's the same way with profiles as well. If I had an ActiveSync email account already configured on the device that was called IUP, we wouldn't be able to apply that IUP email profile from the console. The console would report back that it was unable to install it.
And that's the thing about AirWatch. The main thing is that they didn't want to take control of the personal device. All they want to do is to send the settings over. If you don't have it, I'll give it to you. If you have it, I will not force you to take mine.
I just thought it was a part of the API that there had to be user interaction if there was any association of an app to an Apple ID. That happened, that the user actually confirmed.
It usually just confirms the installation from the app catalog from AirWatch, and that's it. Slick, isn't it?
Okay, so back to our shared device.
Hold on a second.
Oh, sorry.
One more.
Just to clarify, are the apps running on the device or on the server?
The apps are downloaded to the device itself. Okay, any other questions? No?
How is licensing handled for the particular app that you purchase? How is it controlled and how many devices you run?
So we use our VPP program to buy 10 copies of a paid app. That information is then stored on our AirWatch server the AirWatch server actually monitors the number of apps that we have and how many we can push out. Does that answer your question? Yep.
Guys, the AirWatch server public facing, or is it just internal? So if I were to download one of your paid apps, leave campus, turn my Wi-Fi off, how would you get your app back? I know that sounds funny, but it's a real question.
Well, at some point in time, you're going to turn that phone, you're going to turn your internet on at some point in time. And when you do, I'll get my app back.
So it's public facing?
It is public facing.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Well, and the thing is, when you have that MDM profile on the device, if you remove that MDM profile, it removes the apps. Like any enterprise settings that we've pushed out to the device are gone. So
that's a good question.
Yeah,
I'll get it back though. At some point, you're going to turn that internet back on. And also, you know, we can do some geofencing on the agent. So I can actually set up a profile, put a compliance on it, and I can say if this device leaves this perimeter of IUP, remove that enterprise stuff that is on there. You know, that's another nice piece about compliance that we'll talk about if we have some more time.
Okay, so back to the shared device. One of the biggest sticking points with our proposed shared device model was, what do we do about the wireless only devices that don't have a constant connection to the console to be able to check in? Well, we sort of figured out a way to basically stage the device. So what I have here is an iPad. We've supervised it through Apple Configurator. And that's just so basically we have the ability through AirWatch to push out some restriction profiles and limit what the user is able to do on the device. So first off, what I'm going to do, let's say that I just pulled this iPad from a cart. I'm getting ready to sit down in class. We'd go into settings, would actually connect the device. So for this example, I'm connecting to our MiFi up here, but if we were back at our university, would be connecting to our wireless network, which is an 802.11x network. We use our AD credentials to authenticate.
Which it's very important. We were lucky to have a great Wi-Fi infrastructure in place. I can literally sit on a tree on campus and have Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all over. So that was great. So it's one thing that you definitely want to keep in mind. To do this, you want to have a great network and Wi-Fi infrastructure in place.
Okay.
And he's going to type in my MiFi password, but it's okay. Everybody can have it for about 42 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to connect to wireless. You notice that I was free to move about iOS to actually connect to the wireless and everything like that. So I want to show you how quickly the device actually checks in with AirWatch. So you'll see after I hit join, eventually the MDM agent app is going to launch, and it's actually going to go into single app mode and force me into that app. So I have to check the device out as myself.
Because the one thing that we didn't want the device to be wide open when they checked it, when it wasn't checked out, because then they could install their own apps, mm-hmm. They could do whatever. Mm-hmm. So in the shared device environment, as soon as that device is connected and talks to AirWatch, AirWatch logs it into a setting mode, and you cannot do anything other than check it out.
Mm-hmm. And that's so a user wouldn't mistakenly access or grab the device, put in their credentials, and then put it back in the cart without checking it out. So we'll go ahead and join here.
You can go back to the home screen.
Oh, it'll
once your Wi-Fi is connected. So Cody was able to press that home screen and go out, but as soon as that AirWatch server started talking to the device.
And you noticed I didn't hit anything to launch the app, so. Okay, so here we go. You notice that looks a little bit different than the enrollment screen did. This is basically our shared device checkout. So just like we did for enrollment, we need a group ID. So basically the theory behind this is if a faculty member wants to use a shared device in their class, we just go in and set up a group ID based off of the class. So for our example here, we're just going to use a shared RIT testing group.
And still, this is AD authentication. So
Yes.
students have AD accounts, and they'll use that AD account to authenticate.
Correct. And AirWatch also tracks who's signed out what device, which I can show you guys that later when we're actually connected to the console. Okay, so I have my information in there. I'm going to say login. Okay, and then you can see I have ITS tab 1. And down here under shared device, the current user is CA Toy, so me. Okay. And you notice it's left me out of single app mode now that I've actually checked the device out because it's in a different group and it's reapplied different profiles. So just for our example there, you see they got shortcuts for iHelp and iMail, which is our webmail interface, and then the app catalog as well. So
First launch of app catalog.
yeah, takes a little while the first time around. So this just shows you that basically we have control over which group IDs get what apps. So right now the only thing that we are making available in this shared group is the IP mobile app. And just like I explained before, we can also set that group ID to actually be forced into receiving other apps that a faculty member might specify. So pretty useful.
Is it pushing down your email settings as well?
Yes, so if we launch email here,
Okay.
there you go. So prompting me for my email password. And you'll notice it said CGP email before, which is our active sync setup. Right now we're set up using IMAP just because, like I say, the students are still using IMAP protocol for their email. So if I would throw my password in here. There we go. So it's pulling my messages down. All right. So now let's just say, for example, class has ended. I'm ready to check the device back in, put it back in the cart. What am I going to do now that all my personal data is on there? My passwords are saved, everything like that. Well, all we need to do.
Oh, hold on a second here. So one thing I just wanted to point out, Cody, the device, if we were on campus, the device would be connected using the student's credentials. And the one thing we didn't want them to do is put that device back in the cabinet with their credentials still logged on to the Wi-Fi. So you will see, if you look here, Cody has that this device is now connected to our Wi-Fi. AirWatch doesn't care what you're connected to. If you're connected to some internet connection, as soon as you check that device back in, it's going to drop that connection and remove all that stuff as well.
And that's done through profiles. It's pulling back that wireless profile and disconnecting you. So, so when you're handing that device back in, one of two things can happen. Either you can go back into the actual MDM agent app and tap that logout, which I'll do in a second, or through the AirWatch console, we can actually specify an automatic timeout period. So we can say, Tuesdays and Thursdays, our classes run 75 minutes. So we can say COM 101 has a timeout period of 75 minutes. So if I would sign a device out and put it back in the cart and forget to check it actually back in, after 75 minutes, it's going to remove my information and be ready to be signed out again. So that's a very handy feature. Okay, so let's go ahead and log out. Okay, and watch the top corner. See how the wireless disconnects. And then we're able just to exit, and it's ready for the next user to use. We'll go in here and take a look at mail. Notice my mail setup is gone. We've also locked it down now so that email can't be configured. And there you go.
How about the settings, iCloud?
Yes. You'll notice iCloud's disabled. If we try to go in and add an account, all that's disabled.
Go into app catalog.
And our app catalog will not work because we are not connected to a network. And the trick of that is, so, okay, we don't have a network connection. Well, what happens if I connect to wireless and I try to access the app catalog, something like that? Well, if we connect to any type of internet-connected network, it's going to query the server and pull down that single app mode profile and force us back into the app to check it out again. So,
Questions?
any questions on that?
Just going to give you the mic.
I'm sorry, I came a little late.
Okay.
For purchased apps, how do you guys bill for those apps? How does AirWatch link to bill the student for an app they purchase?
Well, as far as the students go, if they're going to actually be purchasing apps on their personal device, they still do it through the App Store as they normally would. If it's actually like a faculty member purchasing for IEP-owned devices, we can go through VPP and get license keys and actually enter them into AirWatch. So AirWatch is not really concerned with like pricing information, stuff like that. They're only concerned with that, hey, you have the licensing for it.
Yep. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Yep.
I wonder, why it would be possible when you sign the device out to replace the Wi-Fi profile.
We could say that.
I wonder, as part of the sign-out process, when you're logging out of the device, would it be possible, or does AirWatch offer the capacity to replace your AD-connected Radius Wi-Fi with some sort of open guest so it has limited connectivity? On a different VLAN?
You can do that. You can do that, and initially when we had this set up, that's what we were doing. We have guest wireless accounts on campus that we give to folks that don't have AD accounts. So when you come into campus, we issue guest accounts to you that you can connect to our Wi-Fi. So initially what we did was we took a guest wireless account and put it in the configuration so that when you actually logged out, which was checking the device back in, it will then fall back to that guest account. And then when you went in to check it out, as soon as this device sends an internet connection, it will put it back into AirWatch, put it into single app mode. You check the device out. It gets a little bit messy, and we're still working with AirWatch on that. Plus, our security guy wasn't too happy with having a guest account sitting on 50 devices. He wasn't happy.
One of the things we also ran into is we as the administrator do not have control over what order AirWatch applies the profiles. So what was happening was it was pulling back the wireless profile and then maybe not necessarily continuing along when it dropped its network connection. So, and like Ben said, that's something that we're sort of looking into with AirWatch.
We're looking into it with AirWatch. And we've been working with AirWatch in the past 3 years. We get these brilliant ideas and we tell them and they're like, well, you're out of your mind. And we're like, well, that's what we want, otherwise I'm not renewing.
Yeah.
You know. But overall the product has worked out very, very well for us.
So no connectivity for you was more convenient than trying to make that work.
At least for the shared device.
Yeah, for the shared device, yes.
Okay, so let me switch back here to
So, I think I can talk. So, talking about compliance, AirWatch has the compliance. It has the compliance rules that you can set on devices. So that, for instance, we were talking about, you know, what if someone has an update and they haven't done that update on their mobile device? AirWatch will not push an update down for iOS. But what we can do is we can set a compliance to do a check on the version of iOS they have, and then keep on alerting the user. We can alert the user up to a month, up to 2 weeks, saying you need to do your iOS, and then set a hard date. If they don't do it, it pulls all their stuff back. it will actually pull all the enterprise stuff. The one other thing that I think are we gonna try and do an enterprise wipe on my phone?
Yeah.
Are you sure I'm gonna have everything?
Yeah. If not, I hope you iCloud backup this morning. So.
I don't back up to iCloud.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, just show the console and let me think about this for a little bit.
Okay, so I've logged us into our AirWatch console. You might have to bear with me a little bit because we are connected to our VPN to actually get into this console. So,
and of course, you have 3 servers that are talking to each other and
yeah,
trying to give us everything that we need.
Okay, so basically, we have a bunch of reports that we can pull up for the devices, like compliance, a list of applications, things like that. As Ben said, though, any of our unmanaged devices, we're not tracking things like that. We specifically have told our AirWatch system, you know, we don't care about that for the unmanaged devices. So let's take a quick look in here at our listing of devices. Okay, so earlier I was talking about basically our containerization of all of our devices. So AirWatch is really nice in the fact that you can separate devices based on groups. So as you can see, we have our managed devices, our shared devices, and our unmanaged devices. So our unmanaged devices were what we just enrolled earlier, any of our BYOD stuff. Our managed devices, anything that IUP owns that we want to be able to do a little bit, you know, extra with, track, full remote wipe, etc. So you can see we have basically our own little structure set up in here for each department at IUP.
Now, earlier I was talking about the fact that we were also looking at something that we could give a copy of the console to the IT managers in the colleges. And so from the top down, really, when you look on the organization group, the global is the top tree. And from there down, we can do whatever we want. But then when it comes down to the colleges group, the IT managers in the different colleges have admin access to each of their own area. So they can create profiles, apply to that area, but we still have the ability to give them a base profile of what we think they should have.
And you can see up here, I'm system administrator at global level. So if they would log in, they might see like CTM administrator at CHSS, for instance. So they only would have access to control anything in that CHSS container and beneath it. Okay. So while we're in here, let's take a quick look at the system configuration. We've sort of been speaking on the fact that we don't want to track people based off of what type of device they are. So let's go into devices and users, general privacy. Okay, so bear in mind, this is basically just like the top level sort of setup for these settings. Just because it says we're tracking does not necessarily mean that we are. But you can see that AirWatch breaks everything down based on, so we have corporate dedicated. That would be like an IUP-owned device, an asset that we actually own. Our shared devices. Then we have employee-owned, which would be like BYOD. And then we have unassigned. So the way AirWatch is configured, if I enroll in any type of BYOD group, it automatically classifies that device as employee-owned. And therefore, you can see, you know, we're not tracking GPS.
We're not tracking any of that.
Any of the telecom stuff. Whereas for the corporate dedicated devices, we are. And then here's another interesting thing, too. So there's 2 different types of wipes that you can perform in AirWatch. So there's the enterprise wipe, and then there's the full wipe. So enterprise wipe basically just removes any of the profiles, the MDM profile, puts the device back into a clean state. So any employee-owned device, we have the capability to perform an enterprise wipe on to pull back any of our apps, pull back any of our settings, things like that. We can also do that with a corporate dedicated device, but then we also have full wipe capability too. So let's say, for instance, user has a university-owned iPhone. They leave it somewhere, it gets lost, etc. We actually do have the ability to log into the AirWatch console. We can either GPS the phone, or as a last-ditch effort, we can perform a full iOS wipe on the device, and it will reboot completely wiped.
So VP calls, I lost my phone, I can't find it, I don't know where it's at. He can then tell us, well, I have sensitive data on there, please wipe it. Mm-hmm. I would show you that on my phone, but I don't feel like spending another week having to reconfigure everything. But I think I'm open to an enterprise wipe.
Enterprise wipe, all right.
It's Friday, right?
Okay.
Huh?
Okay.
So, well, are you?
Well, before we wipe his device, I do want to show you one enterprise wipe. We won't full wipe. So before we do that, I do want to show you one interesting thing. And I was saying about how AirWatch keeps logs of who's signed out a shared device. So right now we're in the global container. I can search for any device in AirWatch. So we'll search for our ITS tab. Okay, so here's our shared device that we were messing with earlier. Okay, so it's interesting. You can see all of the information that's collected. It's compliant. Last time it was seen, when it was enrolled. And down here, if we click on Shared Device Log, you can see I've signed this device out lots of times.
Yep.
So this checked in here where it says iPad enroll, it's basically just a local AirWatch account that the device reverts back to when it's sitting in the designated pool and waiting to be checked out. So that's why it's saying iPad enroll. But any user in AD who would check out the device, it would actually have their username there. It gives the time and date of when they checked it out. So it helps for security logs, things like that. If there's ever a question of who had a device last, and we can actually go in there and see. So. Okay. All right, so you ready to enterprise wipe your
I'm getting sick in the stomach. Okay, do you want to just pull my phone up?
Yeah.
Well, I can just connect this to that. Do a mirror. Like that.
Okay.
That. So, in here, that's my IUP email settings. I have that. Let's go back to General, Profiles. Here are all the profiles I have. Oh, is it slow?
There you go. I was just catching up.
Oh, okay. So in Profiles, let me go back. All right. Maybe I should get closer. So go into Profiles, and you see all the profiles that I have from the enrollment. And calendars, I have the IUP, if it shows up. Is it that slow because I'm not close?
It may be.
Let's stand here and do that.
We're testing the limits of our MiFi.
Wi-Fi is not catching up.
So does this actually remote into the phone itself?
This is just using AirPlay to show his phone on the laptop.
Okay.
Yeah, we're using an app called Reflector that lets you use your MacBook as an AirPlay station. So,
okay, so here it is. I'm just going to pull up my general. I'm going to pull up the profiles. So we have that. I'm going to set my phone down and have at it.
okay, so
It's a good thing I have a Windows phone. I can still use it.
okay, so you see right here we have under management the option for enterprise wipe. Now, the neat thing about this is if you have a device from a known user who you don't want to have re-enroll, you can check that box there to prevent re-enrollment, and AirWatch will actually remember the device ID, and anytime they try to enroll, it will prevent re-enrollment.
You have that one particular faculty member that is a pain in the butt, and no matter what you give them, they're not satisfied. You just say, that's it. No way. Here's a big 2-sheet of paper to set up everything.
Better strike that from the recording.
Right. Right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and enterprise wipe. All right, so let's go back to your phone.
It took the MDM agent, which was the first profile on the top.
Mm-hmm. It is a little slower than usual since we are on a MiFi, but you see it removed all of the profiles there.
So now, oh boy. All right, close that out. I want to go here. I want to go here. Is it catching up? It is. Go here. And I don't have my IUP email in there anymore, but I have everything else that I have set up. I have all my other email.
Didn't
accounts.
remove any of his other settings.
What else do I have? One thing I did not show you, I had those web clips. I had that iHelp web clip for our iHelp ticketing system. I also had iMail. I had an app catalog on here, and they're gone. So email, it's just that. Let's see, contacts. If I can see. I still have some of these, but these are coming from my Gmail. Okay. So I want back on here. I'm able to enroll, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want back on there, go in here, go to awds.iep.edu, type in my group ID, do that, do continue there.
And notice that looked slightly different. He had to accept the terms of use because it's a managed device group, the IT cord that he's trying to enroll in. So, because that's a university-owned device. Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
Is your password just password, all lowercase?
It's actually capital PASSWRD1.
Oh, okay.
Oh, go back to my device.
Okay.
Right.
You can fully wipe a device that's actually specified as corporate dedicated. So that's why we have it set so you can't full wipe a personal device. We would not ever want to accidentally erase somebody's personal phone.
So put in my credentials, hit continue, comes up with this, install profile. Install now, goes through the same process as we did before. Install that, done. You will now be prompted, that's good, that's done. Can I go back to my, so I have the agent. I'll leave this thing sitting here for a little bit.
Yeah, it'll take a little while to push everything down.
And so, querying the AirWatch queries database. Database says that belongs to this group ID. Here are the profiles that that group ID needs. I I had a question last night. Someone was asking, why don't you actually set up their profiles to a student? And so that if the student was, if you have a student that is at the university and they have all these different classes, then they would have all the apps on their personal device if you wanted to push it out to them. And my answer was that, you know, it's all a budget thing. Teachers cannot afford to buy 150 copies of a paid app, but they can afford to buy 40 for just a class. So what we're doing is tying the device to a class rather than tying the device to a student. Okay, so what did I get?
You're prompted for your password there.
Oh.
So on the page where you can actually block a device from being able to re-enroll, I assume there's also a place where you can unblock the device.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's basically a blacklisted area that you can go in and remove the device from. So
Why does it always have to be blacklisted? You know,
It's almost like shun unshun from the office.
right. All right, you can show my device.
okay.
Okay. Click on OK there. So that just prompted me for my email password. And I have my app catalog back. I have my two IEP mail and I help web clips back. So go in here and my IEP is there. I can move it up. There.
It may take quite a while to load because he has millions
And
of
so
messages.
there. Huh? No mail.
Well, it's still loading up there.
Oh boy.
Hey, it'll be a quiet afternoon for you.
Well, I have my calendars back, so that's a plus. Nothing in it though.
Oh, it still is loading. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Phew. All right, so we're good. So, success demo of Enterprise Wipe. I know past couple days talking about BYOD. I was in the class. Guy said, "No way, BYOD is bad. You don't want to do that." We do it because it makes our life easier. We can support those mobile devices, especially, you know, and this whole thing came about. You can take mine.
Okay.
This whole thing came about because, you know, we were doing this manually with every student, every faculty member, every staff member. If they didn't know how to do it, they came in to the IT support center and we had to manually sit there. So we typed up an instruction sheet and they still couldn't figure that out because they would skip a couple paragraphs. So about 3 years ago, the CIO came to me and said, "Ben, we cannot continue to do this. You need to find a solution." That has worked out very well for us. And again, at the beginning of the class, I was talking to a few folks. I'm not a salesperson. I'm just here to show you what we did, some of the challenges that we went through, what it's doing for us, and where we want to go. So from here, what we want to do is we want to get into the secure content locker. AirWatch has a secure content locker that you can actually connect that secure content locker to home directories, to office directories securely, so that now the president doesn't have to hop on from his phone to his iPad, do a virtual, connect to his virtual desktop to get to his O drive or to his H drive with all the files that his office documents that he needs. Right off the phone, you can do that. And AirWatch gives you the ability to actually edit some of the documents. Now, yesterday when I was at the AirWatch presentation, the gentleman said almost any document you can open and edit. I'll let you guys know about that in 6 months. Okay, but from what I've seen, it's pretty good. So you can open up your documents, and the main thing is security. It's the biggest thing. Our president is all about security. We're not allowed to use Dropbox on campus. We can't use Google Drive. We can't use OneDrive. We're going to Office 2013, and we're removing all those connected services out of Office. You're not allowed to do any of that. So in doing our secure content locker, we will actually connect AirWatch to our network shares, So we actually have, we're not even allowed to do any cloud-based product.
That's why we're on-prem.
That's why everything is on-prem. It's a big chunk of money up front, but cheaper down the road. Okay. Anything else? 9 minutes. Questions.
As far as your consultant interaction, would you say that you had an inordinate amount of consulting fees to pay with Airwave when you set this up as compared to everything else you set up on your network?
No, it was, I think the purchase included an annual maintenance and annual maintenance and support. So they actually they came in, installed the product on our server.
We gave them 3 servers and said, here you go.
Here you go.
So.
And they did everything, set it up. Over the next 6 months after the initial setup, though, we had to go through and do some tweaking. And after watching them WebEx in and do stuff, we finally said, well, I don't think we need these guys. We kind of know what this thing does. So, we started doing things ourselves, switching it from SAM authentication to AD. But that's probably about the hardest part. But it's not that hard because they do that for you. And then it's on to you just trying to get a structure in place, because the one thing that we did, our structure changed about 3 or so months after the initial setup, because we forgot about the fact that we wanted to give people access to certain areas. And also you cannot move a device. You can move devices between the same tree, but you cannot go past it up on top. So if I wanted to move a person that worked in the bursar's office and now is in the president's office, if the president's location ID is on top, I can't just move their device up there.
You would have to unenroll and re-enroll.
Right. Now, if they were in the bursar's office, but they were in parts of the bursar's office, you can just move the device within that area. So that was something that we found out, and we're like, okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's do this right, so we don't have to do this about 6 years down the road. Yep.
Our biggest challenge is using AirWatch is installing the agent on iPhones and iPads. You had the web enrollment and basically installed the agent and they entered nothing. Could you actually show us how you've actually configured that?
Configured the installation of the agent?
From the web interface.
You have the console still open. How many minutes do we have? 6.
Keep in mind that device that I enrolled had been enrolled before, so I probably at some point had put in my Apple ID password to actually get the app. So,
How much money do you have? Nice. Where's my slider?
let's take a look here.
Now, when you say you're having trouble installing that agent on devices, what is it doing? It's not just in.
You have to keep going through and putting in the web address, the group ID, and then user ID, the user's password, and all the buttons. And when you went through web enrollment, once you went there, it just went right through and they brought the agent down. The agent was installed.
So are you getting that screen that says like enrollment in process and then check status? Yeah, we've seen that, and that's normally been like if you've started an enrollment with that device or you've deleted it out of the console without enterprise wiping first.
Also, iOS or Android?
iOS.
Yeah.
iOS, make sure you use Safari.
Yeah, that's all we don't
Okay. Because I know Chrome,
Under deployment,
Chrome enrollment, web enrollment.
under the deployment tab, what do you have? You're not actually sending any application configuration
Nope.
with it at all.
Nope.
Okay.
I think he's talking about when you did enroll, those fields were already populated. And that was because you had already enrolled that.
What fields? That's in the email?
The server URL and the group ID, yeah, and that's because it had been enrolled before. So you do with AirWatch, you do have the ability to, if you have an Exchange server or an Exchange-like email server, you can actually set it up to enroll via your email address and send out like an invite to your users, things like that. We don't have that configured at this point, so because of the way our Active Directory is set up. Yes.
Did we answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
You showed being able as administrators to wipe devices. Would you allow users themselves to wipe their device or unenroll themselves?
So jump into the one thing, great question, because that's something that I wanted to cover and I forgot about. But once you enroll your device, you have your own web console that you can go to. You can go to the awds.iep.edu/mydevice, log in with your AD credentials, and it will show you the devices that you have enrolled with your credentials. And at that point, you can do whatever you want to do with them. You can enterprise wipe them. You can do a full wipe. You can basically do anything that is in there that is possible that you can do.
How are you supporting mobile gaming devices, that sort of thing? Do you just have an open Wi-Fi network? Is there a means through AirWatch to do that?
Say that again?
Mobile gaming devices for students or whomever, visitors who might come on campus.
Students all have AD accounts. They're able to connect to the Wi-Fi. Guests using their guest account that we create for them.
So I know that a lot of the mobile gaming devices don't support 802.1x. So do you have just like an open Wi-Fi network or something that's MAC filtered?
No, for anything to be on the network, it does have to authenticate. But in our residence halls, let's say, for example, like an Xbox 360, we have a page you can actually go out and enter the MAC address of the device, and then they can actually put it into our Radius server. So,
okay, we have a. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So, just real quick, we only have 2 minutes left. This is the self-service portal. Now, since I logged in as myself, I'm an administrator, so I have full access to the self-service portal. We block the user's ability to wipe their device, full wipe. However, they can actually go in here and complete an enterprise wipe. So you can see I have 3 devices enrolled here. It just gives me some information about everything. Data roaming. Let's see here. We actually don't have location completely configured for certain areas, so you won't be able to see that there, but you can see event log, things like that. Profiles. The really neat thing about this, oh, and these little exclamation points, this means that we've made a change to one of our profiles and haven't actually published it yet. So it's telling me my installed profile is out of date on my device. So if I, as the administrator, would publish that profile, it would update on all of the devices. We like to let our users know before we're making changes so they don't just get prompted out of the blue and don't know what's going on.
We haven't been able to send that famous email saying, hey, your device is going to prompt you for your password. And so once we do that, then we can publish that.
Okay, well, it looks like we are out of time.
One last note before we adjourn. Do you have a question, sir? No. Make sure we submit feedback for the session. The URL is j.mp/PSUMac64.
All right. Thank you, everybody.